All right, I wanted to take a little time to make a video about the Word assessment, the assignment portion. So if you didn't pass the pre-assessment, you may need to work through the assignment here in Word. Just wanted to, not going to walk through every step of the process, but I did just want to kind of introduce some general tools here in Word. So your document generally has three different parts. So if you have your ruler on, you can see where your text is aligned to start. And you can drag this around and you can change, where your content uh, is allowed to start. And the same over here on the left-hand side of the ruler, you see this gray area at the top. That's your header. I can come up here and click in my header. And now I can actually work in the header. I can't put things in the footer. I'm sorry, in the body. And then the same, I can come down here and work in the footer. So your document's really split into these three different parts. You've got a header, a footer, and then you just have the body of the document. Over here on the side of your ruler, and there are other ways that you can do this, but you can adjust the size of your header and footer. Just manually drag these out, make them bigger and smaller. So one of the requirements for this, and again, what I should always do for these assignments, the first thing you should always do is save your document. So you want to make sure that if you have some technical issue and your computer crashes, your work is saved. So for mine, it would be Goodrich N newsletter. So I'm a stickler for these conventions because before I worked at Sinclair, I worked at a big 200-person architecture and engineering firm. We'd have large groups working on projects, and the projects had a specific naming convention. And if you didn't follow those, your project would get lost or people would have to spend extra time searching those out. So it's important to be able to name your files correctly, including not putting in extra characters, spaces, and having the correct capitalization. So for these newsletter assignments, anytime you've got all these templates built into Word. So if you wanted to open up a new document, you could search out these templates. Let's say you're opening your own business and you want an invoice, right? You find all these different invoice documents. You could find the one we're doing is a newsletter, birthday card, a calendar, whatever you want. If you want to try to use one of these, you can, but these have a lot of built-in formatting. And getting rid of that formatting can be difficult. It also doesn't really teach you how to kind of manually do a lot of this. So I would recommend just starting out with a blank document here. If you're in the body, one of the things you're asked to do, if you go to the layout here, you can split your document into different columns. So columns will be split along the top here, right? It's rows if we want them on the left-hand side. So we're going to have a 2-column document here. And as long as I've got my ruler now I can see where these 2 columns are split. So something else, and I'll turn on Home tab, paragraph menu. I'm going to turn on that Show Hide tool, which shows me all my different hidden formatting characters that I can't normally see, and oftentimes don't want to see, but I do when I set my document up. So one thing I'll notice now that I've set my document into 2-column format is I can access the left-hand column, but I can't, if I come over here and click, I can't access the right-hand column. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a column break. So indicates that the text following the column break will begin in the next column. So wherever I put this column break, anything I try to put in after will end up in this next column, but that also lets me kind of use this next column. And as I put more information in the left-hand column, it won't adjust the right-hand column. So now I'm in a 2-column format. Eventually, I'll want to get this column break all the way to the end here and keep it at the end of this first column. But at least doing this lets me work in both these columns. So next thing I'm asked to do is put a title in the header. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a masthead for my newsletter. And because I'm in 2-column format in my body, if I come into the header, I'm only in a 1-column format. So that lets me, I've got a number of options here. I can format the back here. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to insert, I'm going to put a shape in here, and I'll just find something a little irregular, maybe this. So now I've put my shape in. I can drag it around, get it aligned just the way I want. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to put some text in here. What's my hobby? What did I do before? So I can put I'm going to add some text in here. What did I do before? I think I did mountain biking before. I'm making this in the springtime. It's almost mushroom hunting season. So we'll go out and look for some morel mushrooms here soon. Now I've got my title. I can come down one by Nathan Goodrich, or I'll even call myself the editor, I think is what the assignment asks for. If you put by, that would be fine too. Nathan Goodrich. I want to format this a little bit, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to make it aligned over here to the right-hand side. I'm going to take my actual title. I want that font to be a little bigger. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. If I want, I can come here, I can just play around with some of these things, try to make it stick out a little bit. Maybe I'll drag this out. Really try to get it to fill my header up here. Maybe if I do that, I can make my text even a little bigger. All right, now I'm up to about a 26. And you'll notice if you're up in the header, notice how this is dark and this is shaded lightly. If I get back in the body, now this is a little clearer. This is shaded lightly. Just lets you know which section of the document you're working in. So 2-column format, we've got a title that goes all the way across the top, but the shape at least goes all the way across the top. So other things we're asked to do is select a logo. So you can use that. You can find a logo that you like, or again, you could come in here into the insert and you've got your shape tool. If you've got a newer version of Word, you might actually be able to do some drawings. But again, you could draw out a little heart or something. This can be my logo. I could add some text to that, put my initials or something. Something pretty similar. I'm going to turn off this show hide tool a little bit. But you can play around with this, get as creative as you would like. Get this all the way to the edge here. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm back in the body. Some other things that you're asked to do. So a couple paragraphs of text. I'm just going to find some generic text here that I can copy and paste in. Hopefully you'll spend a little more time. So I'm just going to kind of use this as an example. I turn my show hide tool back on just so I can kind of see what's going on. I'll put my text in here. Drag this back up into my header. So one thing I always say is adjust the size of your text. So maybe for this one, I want my column break here at the end. Maybe I'm going to try to just the entire left-hand side here. I'll try to have this be all text. You can always just increase the size of your text. It looks like if I get that to about a 14, that really fills in my left-hand column here. So that looks pretty good. Something else you can do, go into the Layout tab, References, Design tab here. I don't like how it's all white down here. I'm going to put in a kind of light blue at the top. A little darker blue. I'll go a very light, and maybe I'll do the gray. I'll do a very light blue here for my page. And if you want to, you can play around with the watermark, just a background watermark. You really don't need one for this. Might not even be that appropriate. You could also put in a page border. Just kind of see what that looks like. I don't love the way that kind of cuts my page off. But again, you can play around with the formatting of that. So other things you need to work on here. Go back here and look at the instructions. Insert a photo and a piece of clip art. So we could come over here. I could insert some pictures. I think I can search those out online. I've got this position here. Notice that anytime I put something in, if I click on it, I get these new tabs that pop up. So my mushroom, I click on the mushroom, I get the format shape. I can choose the position. I'm going to fix this to the bottom right-hand corner. So I just went to position and selected bottom right here. So now that's where it's always going to show up. What else were we asked to? Appropriate photo. Okay. The other thing you were asked to do is insert and use the Smart Art. So Smart Art is just a different way of displaying information. So we're always trying to keep from doing the exact same thing kind of over and over and over again. Tricks. What I would like to have is something that's got, okay, let's see what that would look like. So here's a place where I could find, again, one thing we want to try to work on is filling up that space we have available here. My photos, if I'm trying to increase the size, it's got this length to width ratio that the photo was set at. So this is about 2.09 in height. So in height and 3 inches wide. If I start dragging this out, it's going to get very blurry. If I start dragging it out by the edges, or if I drag it out height-wise, it starts to look a little odd. In general, when you change the shape of photos, if you drag it out by these corner positions, it'll change the size, but it'll keep that same length to width ratio. Kind of move this around where I want a little bit. Again, one of the things I'm trying to do is just fill up that space I have available on my slides. So now you've got this Smart Art tool. And again, maybe you want this whole right side here to be your Smart Art. And we can, again, online pictures again. We'll do some mushrooms. I'll do So I can find a picture of a morel mushroom, right? For my text here, I can put in and then after my morel, maybe I could put in a little bit of information about a morel mushroom, maybe distinguishing features, what makes them stand out. But this is in general just what I'm looking for here. I want to see a little bit of formatting. I want to see you've included all the required content. Not sure, maybe I didn't save this one right away. I should have come in here right away and file, save as, put my naming convention in here. I'll just put the one from the assignment. But that's probably step number one, is to make sure you can do that. But here's what I'm looking for when I grade these. I want to see that you've filled up your page with information. Again, don't just copy and paste your text, at least do a little rewriting. You've got an image here. Now you've got a little bit of room in between these two that you could add one more feature. You can always adjust the size of this. 2-column format, title across the top. You know how to put in an image and make it work within your document. Let's see what would happen if I changed the location of my picture. All right. That would maybe move that there. But you can play around with this to get the layout you want. One page is fine. Putting some colors, some formatting colors and characters in there. But this is really kind of what I'm looking for here. And again, this is just me in a couple minutes. We spent, 15 minutes or so on this. Take some time, play around with these different tools. Make sure you spell check. You don't need to track any changes here. You've got all these tools available in the Insert tab, so feel free to use any of these. Understand how to work in the header and the footer. If you're using Microsoft Office 365, you may not have WordArt. You maybe not have a couple of these tools, but for the most part, you should be able to do everything I just did. Thanks for your time. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck with the Word post-assessment.